Hey everyone, this is my response for case 11.2, Saving the Whales and Seals. The first question asks, what aspects of this case are examples of technical challenges and which are adaptive challenges? I would begin to say that I think the adaptive challenges are more of the how can the team and the student organization shift their um, preconceived notions about how the organization is run to going forward with this limited budget for their student organization, and also how can the members shift their, I guess, like their ways of thinking, especially when it comes to having less money to do these trips. And the technical challenges are obviously the budget being shortened, and also the fact that they have to fundraise to get the funds to be able to travel and go on these trips as a student organization. Um, the second question says, how can Josiah and the executive board frame the message of the need to change in a way that reduces the group's tendency to view the problem as a technical issue and increase its ability to think adaptively? So one aspect of this case is that the SWS coordinated, it says, over 10 trips over spring break, 10 trips over winter break, 35 during spring break, and another 10 in May at the end of the academic year. And personally, this seems like a lot of trips to be taking for a student organization, even with its bigger budget in the beginning, before the budget cut. I would say that one way they could frame this is making it more, this change could allow the organization to be more accessible to students who maybe can't afford it, even, before the budget cut. I think that this would also allow students to maybe be more inclined to join if they knew that maybe some of these trips weren't happening, so then it would allow for more of them to be able to afford it. Because I think that because those members interested in participating on a trip are only required to submit a deposit of $20 to reserve a spot. And so I think that if they took away maybe some of the trips and maybe made it like cheaper than $20 to attend, that might allow some students to feel like they can attend and feel like they are welcome, even though maybe it's still relatively cheap. The third question says, after the meeting has occurred, what could Josiah and the other board members do to maintain disciplined attention on the need to fundraise and ensure that group members are not simply looking for the executive board to solve the issue? One thing I would recommend is that for Josiah to make sure that students are understanding the main purpose of this pivot. I think that sometimes when student organization leaders, especially like an executive board, makes a decision, they often don't explain it to the members, so then that causes a little bit of distrust among the group. And so one thing I would recommend is for Josiah to explain why the organization made this decision and also made the decision to attempt to fundraise more for going on these trips. And once the students kind of know their reasoning, I think it would make it a little bit more easier for the students to adapt and to kind of move forward with that process. And number 4 says, central to adaptive leadership is the idea that followers have to be mobilized to deal with change. Do you think the students in this case are going to be willing to change their perceptions about SWS and engage in fundraising? I think they're going to be not so happy about the fundraising process, just because I know, like, personally, if I were joining a student organization that had the trips for being somewhat, like, cheaper, I would expect to just, like, pay the money and then go on the trip. And so now that fundraising is a part of the organization now, I think it would just ultimately need some clarity on the executive board side, just because that's the only way I think students are going to be motivated to do this fundraising for themselves and for the organization. Another aspect of this is the fact that, like, I think that they could explain, if they do know this themselves, the executive board could explain the fact that with this budget cut, it is taking a bigger, sorry, there's a truck outside my window. It is taking more of a budget cut from the student affairs side of the university versus the academic side of the university. And I think that could relate to students being more willing to move forward with this process. And I think that would allow them to be a little bit more willing to change their attitudes and perceptions.